realized, okay, I've tried this experiment long enough. It's failed. Take my lessons, move forward. I think we need to look at stress. Those kind of diets can cause a level of stress which makes them effective. That's what causes us to burn fat. And exercise is a stressor. Career stress, career growth, whatever it is you're going through, that causes stress. Family stuff can cause stress. So
a lot of these bodybuilders and CrossFit athletes got really sick with COVID because they looked great on the outside, but they were really inflamed on the inside. COVID came, they couldn't adapt to that, and it got them some of them actually died.
Because a lot of guys, they go to the doc, they have no idea what they're looking for. They just do what the doc tells them. Take this pill, take this medicine, and then try to walk some more and eat some cereal. That's not effective. He doesn't understand what he's doing. Back to simple steps about the 3 foundational elements of health, which is diet, exercise, and sleep. You get those in line before you try anything else, and that's 80-90% of the work. This is the time, if you really take charge, you could add 10 or 15 years of work life to this career that you've developed, where you have all this wisdom, experience, and influence that you've created. Why would you let that go? Or you can pour more into your family. Whatever it is you want to accomplish with this last half, quarter of your life, whatever you got left, make an impact. Don't die the slow death. And then they start exercising, they get more hungry. Well, if they're more hungry, they're going to eat more crappy food. So let's get the diet in place first. Get your eating schedule down. And then start working in the...
Hey, Zane, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ben. I appreciate it. So much fun.
Healthy AF. That's what your shirt says. That's your brand right there. Let's talk about that. First of all, before we talk about how to get healthy AF and kick ass after 50, which is the title of your new book, your backstory, man. You personal trainer, fitness model on the cover of magazines. Let's go back to that time in your life, how that transpired, and then what were the steps that got you toward more of what you're teaching now, which is more animal-based lifestyle. You did some intermittent fasting in the past, not so much. I know you're really emphasizing sleep now, but let's go back to the steps that got you to where you are today.
Wow. In my 20s, I started lifting in college, and it was the 90s, late 80s, early 90s. So it was like, we took junk. We ate whatever we were like junk supplements, ate food.
Dirty bulking, huh?
Dirty bulking. I mean, it was big. But somewhere in my mid-20s, I started, I was modeling a little bit. And I had to lean out and kind of start thinking about health. And there was a lot of influence, spending time in Europe and Miami. And I found myself running into people and always asking tons of questions to people who were very health conscious. So I was like really looking at from a longevity standpoint rather than a sports and performance kind of standpoint. I was never much of a jock, but for some reason I got locked onto longevity early in life. And I started playing with different diets. We didn't have the internet back then. We couldn't all connect and read blogs yet. So it was just reading and asking people questions, experimenting, trial and error. And I actually played with vegetarianism for a few years. I was pretty rigid with that. Making my own almond milk because that wasn't in stores back then. Blending up almonds and eating a lot of beans and rice and trying to get enough protein, and just hungry all the time, razor thin. Couldn't really put on muscle mass. Played with juice fasting, week-long juice fasts and enemas and all that kind of stuff. That was kind of big in the 90s. And of course, it's made a comeback, but it was just basically, tinkering. I was a tinkerer and trying to figure out what was the ideal lifestyle and primarily diet for longevity to avoid disease. That was my intent, but I didn't have a lot of direction. So again, trial and error. Found myself pretty weak, kind of run down, getting sick actually with a virus that the doc said basically if you weren't on this vegetarian diet, your immune system probably would have been strong enough to shake this, but I think your immune system's been run down after 3.5 years of being a vegetarian. And I was like, oh, well, maybe there's something to this. So I just added little fish, little eggs, little whey protein into my diet, and all of a sudden 3 days later I hadn't had coffee. I'd forgotten to drink coffee. So my energy level improved. I started feeling better. I was putting muscle back on. I'd always been working out, but it was just the diet had really affected my recovery and my energy level, my satiety. I was constantly hungry. And I realized, okay, I've tried this experiment long enough. It's failed. Take my lessons, move forward. And began working at that point, around that time, started working as a trainer. So at 98, I started working professionally as a trainer. and really helping people to lose weight. And I realized that the standard recommendations that we all know, we've all heard for the last 50 years, weren't really helpful for people trying to lose weight, especially if they were over 40. It was like, forget it. So I started, again, tinkering, started looking deeper into other diets and things I could do. And I realized early on, saturated fat's not the demon that we made it out to be. And I was eating whole eggs. I was eating meat. So I knew I wasn't afraid of saturated fat, but what was the lever that was going to help people lose weight? And in 2002, my wife had our third child at that point and was having a little issue shaking the weight. And it hadn't been an issue before, but we were in our early 30s. And she thought she'd try the Atkins diet. I'm like, why not? Go for it. Try it. Doesn't sound too unhealthy. It's meat, a little bit of fruit, some fat, give it a shot. And lo and behold, it worked. She started dropping weight like crazy. And it was immediate. Like right after she started the diet, it just started falling off. And nothing else had changed. She had been working out before. She'd been doing all the same things, but this diet was the lever that needed to be pulled. And of course, all my peers, my other people I trained with and were around at the time, said, "Well, that's dangerous. That's a dangerous diet. Oh, you need carbs to survive. Your body needs carbs to live." And I said, "But it's working, and there doesn't seem to be a downside, and she's not hungry." So she's maintaining her, meal structure. She's feeling better. Her energy level's up, and she's losing weight, which was the initial intent. So I started implementing this with my clients at that point, and it really, was effective. 2010, started playing with intermittent fasting. We're really experimenting with that for, again, longevity, but realizing it would be very helpful for my clients for their satiety and for weight loss. And I still think that's a valuable tool that is, when used properly, is effective. Again, longevity and weight loss. I was doing a lot of fasted workouts, low carb. And as you mentioned earlier, it's not that I've moved away from it. I'm just not hitting it as hard as I used to, because I noticed it started affecting my sleep. And that could be a combination of the level of stress I was creating and my current age, where something in my early 40s I could have handled. At 52, maybe I need to watch all of my stressors. And I think we need to look at stress in our whole life completely. There's a time for things, but those kind of diets can cause a level of stress which makes them effective. That what causes us to burn fat. And exercise is a stressor. Career, stress, career growth, whatever it is you're going through, that causes stress. Family stuff can cause stress. So all of our stressors affect, our body. Our cortisol levels can affect our sleep. And so I've made some corrections just to try to adjust, improve my sleep level, right? Improve my sleep, or quality, I should say. And I try to say this in full disclosure. It's like I haven't got it all figured out. I try to remain intellectually curious, and when something changes, my body's always changing as I get older. Yeah. I try to make adjustments, but I don't think the same tool is always applicable to every circumstance, and they need to be applied with wisdom and with and where they're getting the results that you want. And if something isn't working, it's time to make an adjustment. But I may be a little long-winded here, but that's kind of where I made that pathway to here in the last 4 or 5 years, really realizing how much nutrient density is in animal foods. So a lot of my low-carb journey and low-carb recommendations, it was lots of big salads, big vegetables, and I'm thinking that's where most of our nutrient density would come from, really discounting meat as a source of micronutrients, or eggs for that matter. And, realizing over the last 4 or 5 years, oh my gosh, there's so much more bioavailability from things like, especially, beef liver or chicken livers, egg yolks. But in general, the bioavailability of the nutrients that are in meat is much more available to our bodies and assimilated than many of the vegetables we hold up as superfoods. And shifting away from that, I found, oh my gosh, my digestion's better. I don't feel this weird bloat after I eat. And that really, I mean, it's nice to know I can keep learning in my late 40s. And as I got into my 50s, that there's still more to learn. There's still more progress to make. But that's really been the journey. And I don't think I've ever felt better and more in line with my diet than I do now. In that it's giving me what I need, and I don't feel like I'm working that hard to stay consistent with it,
Awesome.
which is really cool. Like,
Yeah,
I don't miss stuff. I don't miss things.
That is the goal, to reach that level of health. I know there's a lot to unpack there with your story.
Yes.
that we will unpack. First of all, being in the fitness space as you were, I was also in the fitness space. I was a personal trainer for many, many years, and I used to own a CrossFit gym here in Miami.
No.
And I see that having a goal of longevity and disease prevention is very different than having performance and fitness goals. Could you explain the difference and how they're not usually synonymous?
Well, yeah. I mean, there's many, unfortunately, fitness goals are driven by initially vanity, you know what I mean? Or the weight on the bar, which I would also consider to be vanity on some level. I appreciate people who go out there and they're pushing it, and that's their level of strength. That's what motivates them. But the weight on the bar doesn't always translate into longevity or what your blood work looks like, or visceral fat reduction or fasting insulin improvement. It's and performance many times with your diet, you're eating in a way to improve your performance in the gym or performance with a certain sport. So you're really like high fuel. You're rating it by a short-term effect for that performance, which I understand. And for athletes, that's great. But for the general aging public, I don't think that's going to work.
Yeah.
And so for longevity, you need to be thinking about how does what you're eating and what you're doing affect certain markers in your blood work, like your fasting insulin or the amount of visceral fat you're storing around your organs. How's it affecting your blood sugar, your blood pressure? Those are markers where I think we need to be bringing more into the forefront of fitness than the weight on the bar. Body scans and blood work. Body scans and blood work, right, should be superior to bikini bodies and your bench press. And so I just that's the direction I went in, and that's really the direction where I started. And it's easy to get your ego wrapped up in the kind of the weight you're moving, or what you look like in a swimsuit, and I don't think those things are bad. I just don't think they should be primary. I don't think they should be at the forefront.
Exactly. You could have it all, right? You could have longevity, and you could look great and get your personal records, your PRs, etc. But a lot of the time, especially in the fitness space, it's more of like getting as much weight on the bar, maxing out your deadlift, and that doesn't necessarily equate to longevity. As a matter of fact, it could do the opposite, right? We saw the last 3 years or so, a lot of these bodybuilders and CrossFit athletes got really sick with COVID because they looked great on the outside, but they were really inflamed on the inside. COVID came, they couldn't adapt to that, and it got them some of them actually died because you can't just look at somebody from the outside, but you can have it all. That's the goal, right? And I know the book that you wrote is about that. It's like you can have it all no matter what your age. There's a stinking thinking thought that just because you're 40 or 50 or whatever age, you can't get to this certain body fat, or you can't be this strong, or you can't look this way. And you're, putting a stop to all of that. You're proving that that's not the case. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see Zane does not look like he's 52. Honestly, I'm sure you hear that all the time. You look like you're maybe my age, 38 years old, or maybe turning 40, but definitely not in your 50s. So you are the right person to write a book like this. How did the book how did you have the idea? Why did you have the idea to write the book? How did it transpire? And how did you get Dr. Ken Berry to co-write it with you?
It was Ken's idea, believe it or not, and no one was more shocked than me when he asked me. It was 2020. We're all kind of like not really moving around a lot. There's not a lot of events going on. And I had him on a podcast I had launched at that year. Actually, he was my first kind of bigger, more notable guest on there. And he knew I was about to turn 50 at that point. I was just a couple months from 50. And he just mentioned, would you want to write a book for guys like us who are over 50, who are at 50, about how to maintain their health going into, and just because it's missing. And so many books are written for women for sure, and that's great. But we wanted to write something that was kind of for men to digest. In other words, it's got to be concise, not too long, not overly detailed. Explain what you need to explain to make sense, and then give them really simple steps they can put into place without overhauling their whole life, right? It's got to work for a busy dad, a busy guy, career guy who isn't trying to start a new, part-time job in his fitness regime, right? We're not trying to overturn his life. It's like you can fit these into your current life and see exponential results, right? And with the goal of empowering him to take charge of his health. Because a lot of guys, they go to the doc, they have no idea what they're looking for. They know they have a problem. They know the doctor will have a problem, but they wouldn't know how to fix it. They just do what the doc tells them. Take this pill, take this medicine, and then, try to walk some more and eat some cereal, right? And it's like, that's not effective, and it's not empowering. He doesn't understand what he's doing. And so to really make individual an advocate for their own health, to empower them, to give them the knowledge they need, to go to their doc and say, look, doc, I want to add these items to my blood work because I really think these are important to see what's going on with my health and maybe prevent some things, or explain to them why the standard guidelines are not going to work for him, why they were never meant to work for him, because they've been hijacked by the processed food companies, and you're just basically being turned into a profit center for them by following those guidelines. And then give, again, back to simple steps about the 3 foundational elements of health, which is diet, exercise, and sleep. You get those in line before you try anything else. And that's 80-90% of the work, is to get those at a place where you're really, you're managing those, okay? And it can be very simple, but it was really empowering that guy, giving him something that's concise, and talking in a way that the voice of the book is very guy talk, right? It's very straightforward. We're not pulling punches. We're not, throwing softball pitches. It's like, buddy, you don't want to die on the couch with a clicker in your hand. You need to basically get off your ass and start doing something to manage your own health. Stop being a victim, and you don't have to really let off the gas at this point in your life just because you're over 50 or you're having a few health issues. This is a time when you could, if you really take charge, you could add 10 or 15 years of work life to this career that you've developed, where you have all this wisdom, experience, and influence that you've created. Why would you let that go? Or you can pour more into your family, or the passions, whatever it is you want to accomplish with this last, half, quarter of your life, whatever you got left. Make an impact. Don't die the slow death of useless retirement on the couch with a remote in your hand. And you've got assets that we need. Put yourself in a physical condition to put those to work.
Hey, I want to just briefly interrupt the video you're watching to share something with you. One of my favorite companies that I use for health and longevity and biohacking is a company called Bond Charge. And they have a whole range of incredible products, including the blue light blocking glasses you see me wear right now. But one of my favorite products from them is an infrared sauna blanket. That's right. You don't have to spend a ton of money investing in a sauna or spending so much time driving to a facility with the sauna. They actually created a sauna blanket that you could use in the comfort of your own home. And I use this all the time. Why would we want to even do a sauna? Well, there's a lot of research and a lot of studies showing the benefits of infrared sauna. The sauna blanket works by raising your heart rate to a workout or a training session. So you burn more calories while you're actually lying down and relaxing. You could burn up to 600 calories in one single session. Also, it's going to cause you to sweat. And one method of flushing out toxins from your body is through sweat. There's also one of my favorite benefits, this endorphin release, endorphin rush you get from using a sauna blanket. And every time I get out of the sauna blanket, I feel like I just got a 60-minute massage. And that's because of the endorphin benefit from it. So how this works differently than a regular sauna is that it works by using infrared light, which heats the body directly rather than the air around you like a traditional sauna. This means you get the same benefit at a lower heat. So it's easy to set up. It's super convenient. 30 to 40 minutes will suffice in terms of the length of the sessions. And you do that 2 to 3 times a week, you're going to feel amazing. Add that to your keto fasting protocol and watch what it does for your results. You could do it while you watch TV. You could do it while you read a book. I do it while I listen to an audiobook. So if you want to learn more about the Bond Charge products, including the sauna blanket, head over to bondcharge.com/KetoCamp. And if you use the coupon code KetoCamp at checkout, you'll get 15% off your sauna blanket. And actually, any of their products are 15% off with that code. Bond Charge hooked you up. So head over to that domain or click the link down below and go get your Bond Charge products. All right, let's get back to today's video. So important. I love that. That's the message, because it's so important, not just for men, but for women, but in particular.
Absolutely. Yeah.
In, in this case, for men out there, because you're right. A lot of people have the mindset, they've been brainwashed to believe that once you reach a 50, let's call it, everything's downhill. We see that growth hormone drops, testosterone drops, you lose mitochondria, you lose melatonin production. It's like, yeah, that's for the average person who's not implementing the things that you teach in your book. And it's the 3 foundations. You talk about diet, you talk about exercise, and you talk about sleep. Let me ask you this question. Out of those 3 foundations, which one would you say is the most important? Sleep, nutrition, or exercise?
For sure, diet. I wouldn't ever say that I wouldn't say diet to the exclusion of one of those other 2, but I would say start with your diet. Put that in place first. It's something you do every day. Yes, you sleep every day, but diet is what you do every day. It's a conscious effort, and it's where you start balancing your hormones out. And if you start balancing out those metabolic hormones, then it's going to make the other habits you put into place much more effective and much more simple to manage, because that's where you start, improving your blood sugar levels and improving your insulin sensitivity is with diet. And if you start exercising, what's that going to do? Most people, they're going to get hungrier. They're already hungry throughout the day because they're eating poorly. And then they start exercising, they get more hungry. Well, if they're more hungry, they're going to eat more crappy food. So let's get the diet in place first, get your eating schedule down, and then start working in the exercise to compound the effect of the diet and managing your sleep schedule, again, to help with the hormone balance. But I would never say to the exclusion of, I'm just focus on diet. No, start with diet, and then you cannot leave out sleep or movement, especially at this point in your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you make a fair point. They're all connected. I would personally say sleep, just because I think you're right and I agree with you. But the reason I would choose sleep over nutrition and exercise is because here's my thought process. I could eat like crap for a month, and yeah, I won't feel that great because I'm eating crap. But I could not exercise for a month and not feel great. But if I don't sleep for a month, I can't function, right? So that's my argument.
Well, true. Yes.
But to your point, it's like, you're right. We're going to be moving more, so we're going to be hungrier, and then we got to make better decisions with nutrition, which will actually help with sleep. And we're kind of arguing semantics here. They're all connected, right? So we got to focus on all these foundations, and then all the other like biohacking things and supplements, all that will work better if you choose to go that route, if the foundations are built strong, that house of health. So let's dive into each foundation, right? Nutrition. I know that there's keto, there's carnivore. I teach more, going in and out of ketosis, which I call keto flexing. Mm-hmm. You're kind of similar to me from last, I was studying, getting ready for the interview. Last I heard is that you're more animal based, meaning you're not strict carnivore, me either, but primarily you're eating more animal based. And then sometimes you'll have like some fruit or some sweet potatoes. Is that what you currently follow personally?
That's what I follow personally. And that's because I'm lean. I'm maintaining. Yeah. I don't have any blood sugar markers. My markers look great. As far as fasting insulin is like between 2 and 3. Awesome. I feel that is what I use to recover, and I'm managing that to help to see how my sleep responds. If I were coaching someone who was trying to reverse something, whereas weight loss, some sort of insulin resistance, I would not tell them to do exactly what I do. I think to turn something around, you've got to step on the gas a little more. You've got to be a little more rigid, I guess, is a good way to say it, or more consistent with certain.
More strict, yep.
Yeah, more strict in order to turn that ship around in a way that makes so that you can see changes at a pace at which you can see changes and feel like, okay, what you're doing is effective. If you go my way, it's going to be a little bit, what I'm doing currently at maintenance level might be a little bit slower for you. Although compared to the way most people eat, it's still pretty low carb. It would still be effective. But when I start making changes with people, I don't say, here, eat the way I eat. I say, okay, I look at what they're doing now, and I start moving in the direction of as low a carb as possible and really increasing their protein intake, not worried about fat amount as much, unless we have to, but worry about fat quality, like where the source of that fat is, to make sure that the quality of their food is improving. They're not eating throughout the day, right? They're not constantly grazing. And to get the satiety taken care of with the protein and the fat. And I realize that not everybody's going to go 180 degrees, turn their whole diet around instantly. So I try to make, changes at like I said, at a pace that allows people to see the effect while still moving them forward. But yes, so I hope that's not too long-winded, but I don't want people to think that, I think carnivore and keto are some of the best tools you can use dietarily to change your health. If you're trying to turn something around, whether it's weight loss, insulin resistance, autoimmune, any number of other issues that from gut health to metabolic health, you can't find a better tool. You can't find a more effective tool than that. Now, you may not stay there your whole life, and you may not stay there. You may find ways to, like you do, you say, intermittently go in and out of it, but that's your best tool. Mm-hmm. So use that as often as possible to turn something around, and then find what works for you. But by and large, animal-based nutrition make most of your plate animal-based protein and fat. Anything else you add should be whole food. And then judge that based on your goals, your metabolic health, and how well you digest that food. Absolutely. But whole food is the standard. The processed food is what's killing us. Yeah. And the more of that you have in your life, in your diet, the less effective your diet's going to be.
Yeah, absolutely, 100% agree. And I see your shirt, it says seed oil free. That's seed oils are processed. That's a perfect example. You want to avoid that.
Right.
So you've been eating saturated fat, pretty much meat, animal based for many, many years. Last time you did a calcium score, which is measuring the calcium in your arteries, what was the score?
0.
That doesn't make sense, Zane. You've been eating saturated fat and cholesterol.
And for the right, that was about 14 months ago. So I was 51. I was eating 3 or 4 eggs a day pretty consistently for about 20 years. From my 30s, and now it's primarily just a lot of meat. Like at least 1.5 pounds, 2 pounds of meat is usually the goal per day. 0 calcium score. My insulin level doesn't seem to be creating diabetes in me either, which I don't know how that got added as a downside of eating meat, but somehow people seem to associate diabetes with eating meat. But there's nothing could be further from the truth. My fasting insulin's between 2 and 3, depending on the pull, on the draw.
Of course, yeah.
But zero plaque at 51. Mm-hmm. So I'm pretty happy with that.
That's the goal, the power of 0, right? We want a 0.
Right.
So did you get your cholesterol and LDL done? Do you remember what that was?
Yeah, my LDL's on the higher side for sure. It was with the low carb diet. It's definitely probably 200, 212.
But that's a total, right? It's not the particle sizes, right? You're saying
that's not the particle. No.
Yeah.
I didn't do not the particle. No, that's the LDL-C.
Got it. Yeah. So the total count. And then your total cholesterol, what was that? Do you remember?
It can vary. Total cholesterol could be, somewhere between 250 and 280.
Yeah, the reason I asked you that is because according to the standard reference range, you're high on both of that, right? Like a traditional doctor would say, oh, an LDL over 200, like that's dangerous. We might want to consider putting you on a statin.
Oh, he'd be chasing me down the street with a statin.
Yeah,
I
he'd
would,
be
I,
so
yeah,
concerned. You're about to have a heart attack, Zane, right?
yeah,
And then you go and do a calcium score, which is pretty much the ultimate test to see if you are at risk. And lo and behold, it's a 0. So how does a doctor explain that? It's like, oh, you're just an anomaly. They'll say it's a miracle. I don't know what they'll say, some sort of excuse. But
right.
I asked that because I think it's important for people listening to go get a calcium score. Like if your doctor is pushing a statin on you because you're doing keto or carnivore and your LDL's up or your total cholesterol's up, and you are actually concerned, like go get a calcium score, but also look at your HDL, look at your triglycerides. What was that for you? Was it a good ratio?
HDL, yeah, it was. And HDL is usually, it's not super high, but it's like between, 50 to 65. So it's in a healthy range.
Yeah.
Triglycerides generally under 100.
Great.
And I think that's, that could be depending on stress level and so forth like that. But I think, I'm not worried about myself metabolically. I think the biggest things for that to look at would be, like I mentioned earlier, the calcium score to show that's your progress or what's been happening. And then in real time, look at your fasting insulin. If you're not metabolically unhealthy, why are you worried about LDL? Or look at, you can look at some inflammation markers if you want, but heart disease is a result of inflammation. And I think we see, an oxidized LDL could be a factor in that, but generally it's assault on the artery, which then creates plaque, right? Because if you have assault on the arteries, the inflammation, your body's trying to patch that up with plaque. Well, if I don't have plaque, then for some reason my body doesn't feel there's any reason to start patching up any inflammation in my arteries. So, and I've got enough cholesterol to do it if I wanted. I got plenty to go around. I prefer to use it, for making hormones and brain matter,
Right.
I'm not, I just kind of shrug and I'm like, if you want to keep believing that, doc, if you're open-minded, I got some studies to show saturated fat is not an issue and LDL-C is not an issue. And meanwhile, there's a Japanese study, you're probably familiar with that, where it showed the healthiest cholesterol scores that they found. It was at the 𝙎𝙎𝙍𝙎 school in Japan. It was like 220 to 240. Was the ideal range for men, or for, I guess, for humans, for their cholesterol. That was the ideal range, 220 to 240. Again, that would give a cardiologist a heart attack. But
ironic.
We don't want to recognize that. We don't want to recognize these things. But there has, as I said earlier, our medical research and our nutrition guidelines have been hijacked.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you're right. A conventional cardiologist will see that and they'll be concerned, but they would pat you on the back if your cholesterol is under 200, if it was 180. And that is actually a problem. Low cholesterol is more of a problem than high cholesterol. And there was a Harvard study that came out, I think 2008, that showed people who have heart disease actually have normal to low cholesterol than high cholesterol. People are having heart attacks it's a problem. It's blocking nitric oxide. It's interfering with, you said, brain matter, sex hormones. It's like cholesterol is so important. It's so ridiculous that we're still having to have this conversation, isn't it? Because the research is there, but to your point, it's been hijacked by big pharma, big food, the government. So usually what the government's telling you to eat, it's the complete opposite. So they tell you to eat Lucky Charms and don't eat meat. It's the complete opposite. Eat meat, don't eat Lucky Charms.
Right. Yeah.
You're pretty fit. I mean, what is your body fat percentage? Do you know what it is currently?
I did a scan last August. It can vary a little bit from winter to summer just because of what I'm doing or being out or how I eat. But it's usually right around 11.
That's pretty good. Yeah. 11 is lean. Yeah.
It's lean. I mean, and so it depends on what you're looking at. I mean, there's such a variation of machines. I could go to like 3 different machines, get 3 different numbers. I mean, there were some machines that was in a local gym where you kind of sit on a little biometric thing. It was telling me 4 or 5%. Well, I knew I wasn't 4 or 5%. I was lean. I wasn't 4 or 5%. So I got a DEXA. Instead of for the bone density, they used the version that's for your body fat. And whereas a lot of people would look at me and say, okay, you look like you're 7 or 8 or 9. Well, that's based on that concept of, using these biometrics that really aren't that, in my opinion, that accurate.
Or not, yeah.
Yeah, but with a DEXA, 11%, 7 ounces of visceral fat, so less than half a pound of visceral fat. I'm pretty happy with that. I think, we need to rethink the body fat thing, because visceral fat, to me, is so much more important than the subcutaneous fat. Subcutaneous fat may not look as pretty, but hormonally it really doesn't have that much of an impact on our health until you get to a level where you're really overweight or obese. But the visceral fat, you could be pretty lean and have a significant amount of visceral fat that can be impacting your liver's ability to manage blood sugar. It can affect your kidneys and your blood pressure, heart, of course, and you just don't want that much visceral fat building up. That is hormonally active. I mean, it can affect your testosterone levels, lower them. And so I think we need to shift our focus away from this, like we said, vanity metric of body fat being so important, and let's look at visceral fat as much more of a metric of health.
Yeah, so true. That's why you always hear people say, oh, but I have a friend who eats whatever they want and they're so skinny. They might have a whole bunch of visceral fat. They're just packing it around their organs, which, to your point, is arguably more dangerous than packing it around your face and your arms.
Right.
Asian population usually have that genetic variation where they're packing it more visceral fat. So they're TOFIs, right? Thin on the outside, fat on the inside, but they develop, these metabolic syndromes faster, even though they look skinnier, but all their fat's going to their organs, and that is a problem. So DEXA scan is a great idea because that'll give you an idea of how much fat you have around those organs.
Absolutely. Exactly.
You mentioned testosterone. I know that there are different thoughts surrounding testosterone in men. And mine has it continuously changes and evolves as I look at things and explore different options. But, a lot of men, I don't know what your thoughts are on this, so I'm going to be curious to hear your thoughts. But a lot of men of 40, 50, even now in their 30s, are looking to get testosterone injections because their testosterone is low. So they're taking it, and of course, when you start taking it, you tend to have to take it for the rest of your life, and you pay attention to the levels accordingly. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on testosterone injections? Is there a time and place for it? Do you currently do it? What are your thoughts on it in general?
I think it has a place in that, especially as we get older. You want to maximize diet, lifestyle changes. So lifestyle, diet, exercise, and sleep to improve that as much as possible. And I think when you're talking about guys in their 30s or even their early 40s, most of them could have a great deal of impact on their testosterone levels just with lifestyle. At some point, once you get past late 40s to 50s, you could be optimizing all of your lifestyle habits and still have a free testosterone level in the single digits. And there's not much more you can do to improve it. You might be able to improve it, 10, 20% here and there, depending on what you do. But that's, go from a 6 to an 8. It's not really that impactful. And at that point, I think you need to look at what the symptoms are. It should not be about gym gains or muscle or vanity. What happens when testosterone is low is much more about personal drive, libido, your creativity, brain fog, your ability to focus. These things are what really you notice when testosterone is low. And most people, by the time you get to 48, 50, stuff like that, the gym gains shouldn't be as important, but they still want to show up for their job, for their career, for their family, and have that energy to really, like I said before, put all that experience and wisdom to work. So at that point, the guy's got a decision to make. I think one of the downsides is there's a lot of docs who don't know how to manage it. They don't understand it. Yeah. And if you're going to go that route, I would find someone who's really good at managing that, whether it's a functional doc or a doctor who's really puts the time to understand this and learn this. It's not something people should just be, there's a lot of docs who for instance, they'll test for total testosterone and say, oh, it looks fine, but they won't look at the free. And there's a lot of other things going on in your chemistry that can affect
hormone-binding globulin either.
Exactly. Yeah, hormone-binding globulin, cortisol levels, all those can affect your free tea. And I have, I think probably about half of my clients, male and female, are on some sort of hormone replacement therapy. Most of them are, and those that are over 45, let's say in their 50s and 60s. And it's been a game changer for them. I hate that there's so much stigma about it, and more of the stigma seems to be around guys. I mean, you wouldn't tell a woman who's been through menopause that you shouldn't have hormone replacement therapy. There's no reason for you to have progesterone and estrogen and testosterone supplemented just because it makes you feel better. Meanwhile, her gynecologist is probably more likely to give her an antidepressant when she starts reporting of these same symptoms. And I've had that happen. I've had that happen to a client. I had someone one tell my wife the same thing several years ago. Oh, you're just, and it's menopausal symptoms. They want to throw an antidepressant at it. Well, how about we find some bioidentical hormones, get levels back up to where they were maybe when they were in their 30s, and see how they feel then. And suddenly, it's like a light comes on, and they feel amazing. And they're back to their old selves. It's like, okay, they're more optimistic. They have more drive and focus and libido. Again, all these things are important to really make life worth living. But I don't think it should ever be, and we say this in the book, it should ever be a substitute for poor lifestyle choices. You should never try to mask your lifestyle choices with hormone replacement therapy. Get those in place, do as much as you can, or while you're doing that. But don't. I've seen that happen too, and it doesn't really change much. A guy can be on hormone replacement therapy, but if he doesn't change his diet or cut back on the alcohol or start moving, get some decent sleep, he's just a metabolically unhealthy, probably overweight guy with more testosterone. He's not turning into a bodybuilder. This is not bodybuilder stuff. This is not steroids. Bodybuilders look at what we would use in the dosage amounts, especially from hormone replacement therapy or testosterone therapy, as almost like junk. Like it's not effective. That's not what your goals are. It's not what you're after. And so I think changing the stigma, changing the conversation around hormone replacement therapy is something that it's another biohack. It's one of those things where you add on to a healthy lifestyle because you've gotten to the point in your life where your body's saying you don't need to reproduce children anymore. So we're just gonna we don't need this stuff so much. But if you want to keep producing in other areas of your life, in your career, with your family, it can be helpful. I'm not saying everybody needs it, but if you think about where you are with that, have a good conversation with your provider and what your symptoms are, and it might be a good fit. So as far regarding myself, I did find that my testosterone, I was lean, muscular. I was probably 6'2", 195, 198 pounds. Lean. I didn't have any vanity goals. I was quite happy with where my fitness was. And I was intermittent fasting. Eating low carb. I'm eating plenty of protein. Felt great. Optimized in all other areas. Fasting insulin was great. Of course, no plaque. But my testosterone was at 6 ng/dL. So there's two ways they measure testosterone, and they're a decimal point apart. So you want to make it's like so it's at 6. That's pretty darn low. Single digits is not great. And when I realized, talking to the doc, what some of the symptoms were, I thought, oh yeah. Because for guys, like for women, when their hormones drop, it's almost like they fall off a cliff. Like within a year or two, their hormones just go from to like they just fall. Guys, it's a really slow decline. From about 35, 40 years old, it's like this really slow, and we almost don't notice it until we're down in this rut, and we're looking up like, man, how is that guy still doing that? How is this guy running circles around me? Why is this 35-year-old like zipping around doing all these things, and I'm just trying to like stay focused past 3 o'clock? So I made the decision to start supplementing testosterone. Wow, like opened up my mind to just more energy, more creativity. I started trying to basically thinking about other ways I could leverage my career, my knowledge, and it just it just felt better. Relationships feel better. You're not as run down. You're not as grumpy. Sleep got improved. I may have put on, well, everything else being the same. Like my lifestyle didn't really change as far as diet and fitness goes. I put on 10 pounds. Okay, so it's not like I just blew up, but it was 10 pounds. So full disclosure in that. That was not my motivation. My motivation wasn't gym gains. It wasn't more muscle. I was happy. It was all the other things that come with testosterone that just make you more human, a more engaged, hard driving human.
Yeah, it was great explanation. I think that there's a lot of misconceptions around hormone replacement therapy. I agree with you. There's a time and place and there's a right way to do it, but you got to make sure you're, monitoring your numbers. But you explore that route, to your point, Zane, after you've already optimized those three pillars, right? Diet, exercise, and sleep. And then you could see if this makes sense or not. I think where a lot of people get into trouble is that they don't do the work. They just rely on taking the hormones, and you're not going to get the results you're seeking if you're not actually doing the work and eating an anti-inflammatory diet, getting the seed oils out, getting your sleep, getting your movement in. Then if you decide to take it and monitor your numbers, you get to maximize that. But there's also, this conversation that needs to be had that the levels of testosterone in your blood on your lab test is one thing, but then is it actually getting into your cells, right? How is your sensitivity to the hormone, right? Are your cells actually hearing it? And that's where inflammation comes into play. If your cells are inflamed, I don't care if somebody takes a whole bunch of testosterone and they have optimized blood work, they're not going to get the benefit and feel all the benefits of actually somebody with high testosterone because they're so inflamed. So somebody could have arguably lower levels of testosterone, let's say a guy in their 40s, but their cells are really healthy. They don't have a lot of inflammation, and they could have the same benefit of somebody with higher testosterone and higher inflammation, meaning if they're sensitive to the hormone of testosterone, even though it's lower, they'll get a good effect. But it boils down to the inflammation, right? It's like, how much inflammation do you have? But after you've explored all these routes, then you could decide, all right, this is something I'm going to go on. But I think a lot of guys, especially, take the easy route. I can't tell you how many guys I start working with, and I ask them, what are you taking? And it's like testosterone. They could be 32 or 42, but they haven't done the things to optimize their lifestyle. I'm like, oh my gosh. And it's unfortunate because there's a gentleman in the health space, I'm not going to name him, but he's really popular, and he has like a concept where he ships out kits to people, and in the kit is like testosterone injections and iron supplements. It's like, this is not something we just send out to the masses. It's like something you work with an individual and monitor their numbers. It's unfortunate that it's so readily available that people just use it, not seeing all the cons of just taking testosterone.
Oh my gosh, no, it needs to be monitored. You need blood work to make sure that anytime you make a change like that, there's always a ripple effect into other areas. So you're going to feel better. But again, it's exactly, it should not be just a Band-Aid. You're not handing out aspirin here. This is a bioidentical hormone, and you're about to increase it to a level, ideally, maybe where you were 20 years younger. And I would have a hard time seeing a 30-something-year-old take this, as supplement, unless you'd been through a lot of other measures first to make sure that, for whatever reason, he's got hypogonadism. Like he's got a specific case. That's an exception, not the rule, right? He's got a specific problem. Women too can come across. You have women who just go into early menopause for whatever reason. It could be a multiple, factors there with lifestyle or something that's trauma. Who knows what else has happened to them? There are always those exceptions, and I don't want to say anything that's like you're wrong or you shouldn't do that, because we all have to live in our own bodies. I mean, we don't need to judge what other people do to make sure they feel like we don't know how long we're on this planet. What are you waiting for? Make the most of this body. And that's why I feel that about, diet, exercise, and sleep, same thing. But I mean, at some point, your quality of life is important. And if you've done everything else you can with your lifestyle, and you're still, something's missing, find the least invasive way to impact that. And to me, I think hormone replacement therapy, that is, you're using bioidentical hormones to get you up to a level again, where you would have may have been at a healthy 30, 35-year-old, that's far better than having to take blood pressure meds or blood sugar regulation, insulin. I mean, people talk about as if it's cheating. Like I'm cheating age. I'm cheating disease. I'm cheating an early death. Okay, I'm cheating an extension in my career because I feel like I just want to keep going. I just want to keep making an impact into my 70s. Call me a cheater, but I'm cheating age, and that's what I've been all about. And so I don't. If someone doesn't choose that route, good. God bless you. Have at it. But to me, to be optimal, I felt like I wanted to raise that testosterone level into the double digits. And
I respect that. Yeah, I respect that. You know, I wouldn't call it cheating. I would call it optimizing your health, and there's a time and place for it. You're doing it responsible. That's the way to do it. You know, that's the whole point. Like, you do it responsible when it makes sense after you've done everything else.
Yeah.
You know, your book just came out, Kicking Ass After 50. I know it's written for men, but ladies out there who are probably listening or watching, like, you have relationships with men, right? So understanding them better, this would be a good book for you as well. Do you want to add more to that, Zane?
Well, I mean, it applies to, you mind if I hold it up here? So this is what it looks like. If you look on Amazon, Kicking Ass After 50, and it says it's a guide for men, and I had love women. What about us women? Look, every principle in here regarding diet, exercise, and sleep applies to humans. Okay? It applies to humans. It applies to women. We have the chapter at the end that's about testosterone, but guess what? That applies to hormones across the board. Whatever you do, whatever a guy would do to optimize his testosterone would work for optimizing any sex hormone, and that's basically putting the plan of diet, exercise, and sleep in place. And, you know, it's just written, like I said before, in guy talk. It's very straight, tough talk. I won't say locker room, but it's very guy to guy. And so if ladies, if that doesn't bother you, then by all means, you know, read the book, because everything applies. We go into the science with diet, with seed oils, about why those are dangerous and how they became part of our food system, and we show the correlation between the entry of the seed oils and processed food in general, processed sugars, processed grains, and correlate that with the introduction of the metabolic disease in our system, with heart disease, which is a fairly new thing since the 20th century. Obesity was 1% in 1900. You know, we're at 42 now. Type 2 diabetes they say it discovered in the 1930s. Didn't track it until the 50s. Mm-hmm. Well, that's when all this processed food came into our system, right? We were eating beef and butter and bacon and eggs long before we had these diseases. We didn't have these diseases. We didn't have obesity. Right. So that's really the point. And the back of the book is full of studies. I've got about 50 pages of studies that reinforce what we're saying here, because these are studies that don't make it in the mainstream. They don't reinforce the standard guidelines. So as a resource for people, even if they might know this, it's a resource for them to say, hey, take their doc, or take to their dad, or take to that know-it-all college kid if you're my age, and say, not vegetarian diet. Protein is the most bioavailable, or is the best. Animal protein is the best source of protein for you. Yeah, animal protein. Or saturated fat is not causing heart disease. These seed oils that you're eating in every restaurant, the canola, all that. 50 studies on these seed oils, how they are associated with disease. So it's a resource. It's written in a font you can actually read. It's not little tiny things, and it has the links to it, and it has a little summary in each one. So we want it to be a resource for people. It's just, we said for men, because you want to niche a little bit. You want to say, okay, guys, here's something. It's concise. It's easy to put into place. We're talking straight talk here, and that's what guys want. That's what guys will want to consume. But it's certainly, all the information applies to men, women, all ages.
Yeah, and Dr. Cate Shanahan wrote the foreword, and she's a friend of the show. We love her. So speaking of seed oils, she's like the master to give you an idea of the seed oils history. So it's a great resource. So if you're a lady, you might want to pick it up and read it yourself. Buy it for somebody who's a guy. even if you're, it's I'm in my 30s, but it's still a valuable resource for me because I plan on getting to 50, right? And I want to kick ass after 50.
Right.
So I'm thankful that you and Dr. Ken Berry got together to write the book.
Yeah, I recommend starting as early as possible.
Yeah,
yeah, don't wait till you're 50. It's like It's a lot easier if you start now and kind of stay consistent over the years to maintain
100%.
that. We start paying for the sins of our 20s and 30s when we hit 50. It's like, yeah.
So true. Yeah, Einstein said intellectuals solve problems, geniuses prevent them, right? So let's be a genius. Let's prevent these problems down the line. Hey, I want to take a minute to share something with you as we take a break from the video you're watching. One of the most common things I see to why people don't have enough energy levels, they have trouble building lean muscle mass, they have brain fog, fatigue, and they don't feel good is because of a deficiency in a hormone called testosterone. Now, testosterone is a very important hormone to have in a healthy amount for both men and for women. So how do you reclaim your vitality? How do you reclaim this very important fat burning and muscle building hormone? Well, you can do it with a powerful supplement called Upgraded T. It has been my go-to for naturally elevating testosterone levels. Upgraded T is from Upgraded Formulas, and it contains the highest quality of ingredients that have been proven scientifically to increase testosterone production. Now, as I mentioned, if you're a woman watching this is very important for you just as a man watching this right now. Upgraded T is a natural and safe way to boost testosterone levels. When you boost testosterone levels, it's going to increase your sex drive, vitality. It could help replace fatigue with all-day energy. It'll help you lose that stubborn belly fat. Testosterone is required for fat burning, so it'll help you with the last 5 to 10 pounds that you're looking to lose. It helps you be in a better mood, helps with your memory and focus. So here's the 3-step approach. Step 1, take 2 capsules of Upgraded T with water every morning. It does not break your fast. You can have it with food or without food. Step number 2, notice your energy levels and dominate your day with more confidence and more vitality. Step number 3, wake up the next day having better sleep and just keep doing what you're doing. As simple as that. So if you want to get your hands on Upgraded Formulas, Upgraded T, and any of their awesome products like their Upgraded Magnesium and their hair mineral analysis testing kit, head over to upgradedformulas.com. And if you use the coupon code ketosis at checkout, they're going to give you 15% off your entire order. That is upgradedformulas.com. Ketosis at checkout. We're going to drop that link down below. And let's get back to today's video.
Exactly.
Last question for you, Zane, is around my favorite supplement in the world that I talk about all the time, which is could boost testosterone, lower your insulin, help you with brain fog, and it's called vitamin G. I call it vitamin G because it's vitamin gratitude, the practice of gratitude, and all the benefits that come with it. So my question to you is, what are you grateful for today? What's the vitamin G dose you want to take today?
Oh, man. Oh, wow. That's big. I am very grateful that I wrote this book with Ken Berry. That was an opportunity. But really, I have to say, I'm grateful for, and this always kind of gets to me, my family and my wife, because that's what's driven me to be to keep going forward, to want to make an impact, to make change. And it's just the motivation to not be all about me, but to really help others. I could be a totally self-absorbed, just say, hey, it's just about me being healthy, but that's not fulfilling. And so I could say it's the act or the life I've had with my family, with my wife over the last 25 years. That has made me just a better human, and I'm thankful for it.
It's awesome. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's definitely something to be grateful for, man. Where's the best place to get your book and go check out more of your work?
The book's on Amazon. It's an ebook and paperback, as you saw. We're going to be working on an Audible very soon. I think by somewhere in summer, we're going to get an Audible knocked out with both of us reading from it, adding a little banter.
Brilliant idea.
Yeah, both of us discussing things, above the text. So in addition to the text, I'm most active on Instagram at Zane Griggs Fitness. But if you just want to find where my various, depending on what your social media of choice is, just go to zanegriggs.com and you'll see Twitter, Facebook, whatever it is your thing is. If I have it, that's where I'm talking, it's on there. So
we're going to, zanegriggs.com. We're going to put that down below. Go get the book. I'm glad you're doing the Audible and reading it with Ken, because I like when authors read their own books.
Yeah.
When I narrated mine, Keto Flex, the first book that I narrated for Audible, and it was quite the project, man. It was really challenging and so worth it, though, like, because I think that the audience really appreciates that and prefers that the author would read their own book. So I know that I do as a listener. So I'm glad you're going to do it with Ken. So stay tuned for that. It'll be available on Audible too. You could get Ken's nice accent in that book.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sure you both are going to have fun going back and forth. So Zane, I appreciate you. I acknowledge you and your dedication to help people, not just men, but the world, with the work that you're doing. So congrats on the book.
Thank you, Ben. It's an honor. Appreciate it.